Hello, everyone. My name is Spencer Walsh. Welcome to today's show. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We got a good one for you, as always. Keeping you updated on some of the latest coming out of Gaza over the weekend, as the United States President Joe Biden has warned that any occupation of Gaza would be a, quote, big mistake, but I guess their siege is okay. We'll give you the full update on an apparent effort to turn on water in some parts of the Gaza Strip and how that has gone awry in the most Israeli way possible. The UN Humanitarian Office has warned that Gaza's hospitals' last reserves of fuel will probably run out within the next 24 hours, and the UN continues to call this an unmitigated, unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe. So, meanwhile, as Israel deploys thousands of troops, tanks, and weaponry along the border fence with the Gaza Strip amid expectations it'll begin a ground invasion soon of Gaza, Iran's foreign minister Hossein Amir Abdollahian has told Al Jazeera Tehran will not be a bystander in the conflict, cautioning both Israel and the United States about potential substantial losses if the war between Israel and Hamas intensifies. Also, we'll take a look at a horrific hate crime coming out of Illinois. The MSNBC doing some ethnic cleansing of their own on their air, and another impassioned post, a really incredible post out of Gaza from Haider Aid, telling you more about the situation that he is going through, and his fellow Gazans are as well. So we start, with this coming from the, coming from Al Jazeera here. Again, for all the people who want to, complain about me possibly using, Al Jazeera as a source. Well, I would say to you, show me a source that, is not biased, another source that's not completely biased in favor of Israel, and I will consider using that as well. It's like there is none, especially one that's, this good at, gathering information from that part of the region. It's a fact. So anyway, we start with this, situation. It just continually worsening situation coming out of Gaza. Pretty much over the weekend, we saw some of the most horrific, just clearly just signs of ethnic cleansing going on that we have seen yet. Just horrific pictures, just direct comparisons of the Nakba of 1948, where we saw Palestinians, back then going on horse-drawn carriages, all, what little cars and automotive transport they had was probably, destroyed in airstrikes. So, we're seeing people walking out of Gaza with what little they have just slung over their shoulder. We're seeing people, trying to, again, in 2023, use horse-drawn carts to try and get out of this situation here. It's really, really horrific stuff. Richard Engel, very funny, just an Israeli, pro-Israeli stenographer for NBC, is reporting that the strike on, the strike of some kind, the airstrike, it looked like on a huge convoy, of just Palestinians packed with all their stuff to the back of a truck, a massive kind of flatbed truck, that killed 70 Palestinians, and injured more. They're saying that was a Hamas booby trap to stop them from leaving. No one else on the ground says that in Gaza, reporters or otherwise have said they've seen any evidence of Hamas stopping people to leave. But what they have seen, and what I have personally seen videos of, is Gazans in the street saying we would rather die here than be forcibly displaced again by Israelis, and all that stuff that is going on. It's really, really horrific situation. 50 plus family members. This is just 10 minutes ago. 15 members of a family of a Gaza official has been killed in an Israeli air raid that have claimed the lives of a total of 16 members of his family, according to the Palestinian Territories Media Office. The media office did not, which issued in the last 15 minutes, did not specify which part of Gaza was hit by that bombardment, but it seemed to be also a family complex in Khan Yunis, according to Al Jazeera Arabic. They're saying, again, this is just, it is, Hamas is, not everyone in Hamas, even the organization Hamas itself, some of the people, they do, media. Some of the people, they do, completely mundane political things within Hamas. There's only so much they can do because they're under constant surveillance, under constant blockade of resources from the Israeli government. So that's why they're, I say, and I think the appropriate way of looking at it is they're not, really truly able to govern, freely in any sense of the word. But they do, the point I'm making is not everyone in Hamas is militarily trained. Do they feel the same way about Israel and what Israel is doing to them? Probably. But, again, not everyone in, there are civilians even in Hamas, because Hamas is a political party first with a military wing of Al-Qassam brigades. That is something you have to, and again, let alone their fucking family members. Like, these are kids that are being killed on the regular here. And I don't care if their, family members are part of Hamas. Honestly, I really think that is just as bad. These are stories of families being wiped off the map. We have seen some people stay. We have seen some people, obviously flee towards the south, all the while being bombed either way. The Rafah crossing, it's so funny to see people, being like, what is no one in Egypt cares about the Palestinians. Like, really? We're talking about Egypt? Really? This is, again, when Israel has bombed the Rafah crossing, it is really just the gall of these people. Like, they think they can say anything. It has been some really kind of shocking challenges lately. I've been pretty surprised to see in some places, mostly honestly in British media, there has not been a single outstanding interview of someone kind of breaking the trend. To be fair, some of the worst examples I've seen have also been in British media, but there, at least no one in the US has had themselves stand out with any sort of remarkable, brave, bold, or any sort of outstanding coverage of the attacks. Like, even things like the New York Times, like, they have just been rabidly just beating the drum for the most violent possible solution with their stories. And they're not coming out and saying kill them all. They're saying in the way they're doing it, they're focusing on these very, very close, personal, in-depth things of horrible things that have happened to Israelis that deserve to be focused on. There's no doubt. There's no one saying any way otherwise. But when you focus on one Israeli family and their pain and their suffering, you play each voicemail of each loved one sent over the course of a 9-day period while kids are dying on the daily in Gaza, and some of the most horrifying videos I think anyone has ever seen in their entire lives are coming out on a daily basis, and all you could talk about is the suffering down to the last itty-bitty detail of one Israeli family or the other who happened to be at the music festival, the rave next to the barbed wires of the open air prison that Gaza is, when they obviously came in on the hang gliders, and I think you are really, you're trying to send a message. And I think people, the people, I hope at least they know what they're doing. I feel like everyone can, with a brain, can kind of see what they're doing. But again, there's no sense of, in any way, sense of proportionality. There's barely even any sense of acknowledgement. It's just this top-down narrative perpetrated from Biden on that the only people responsible for any deaths are Hamas, and not the people who are actually in large numbers causing the deaths, firing indiscriminately on civilians. Like, this is just not being put into the picture at all. Right now, the only thing that seems to be stopping them from a full-on invasion of the besieged Gaza Strip, the destroyed Gaza Strip, the massacred Gaza Strip, but somehow the still alive, the still charging, the still living, the still breathing Gaza Strip. That the only thing that seems to be, putting that off at the moment is a particularly bad flood on the borders of Gaza and Israel. So again, I know those Jewish people, especially the Jewish people that happen to run and associate with Israel tend to be on the more religious side of the of the spectrum. Every religion has a spectrum of people who are more devout within it and people who are less devout. The people that tend to associate with Israel, they tend to be among the most devout in terms of Judaism. But of course, you do have some of the notorious Harder Jews, want to give them a shout out as well, being very, pro-Palestinian. But, I wonder what they take from the fact that their big invasion now is being postponed by a, shall we say, biblical flood on the borders of that, in that part of the world. A lot of rain happening, but I'm sure they will get to it eventually. Meanwhile, though, as this all leads up to things, seeming to hit a boiling point, we're seeing this really horrific stuff. Over the weekend, we saw a really incredibly brave stand of, Doctors Without Borders, the Red Crescent, Palestinian Red Crescent, who are, operating some of the biggest hospitals, which just so happen to be in the north of Gaza, and Israel is telling them to get out because we will bomb them. Their patients, thousands of patients, and they're barely hanging on to their lives because Israel has cut off all electricity and fuel, and it just completely besieged the strip. And so the people there, of course they can't move them. They give them 2 hours. They give them an hour. They give them an hour to clear a full hospital. It's just like, this is just unimaginable evil. And then the doctors essentially said, we're not going to leave our patients to die. You're going to have to kill us too, which is just incredibly brave. And, there aren't words to, I can't, sitting here in my position, I can't possibly understand the level of bravery and level of sacrifice that is, putting up there. And they said, fine, we'll give you like 6 more hours. And now I think they're extended to 24 hours because they said, we are not leaving. We are not giving our patients up. And that is the only thing that's keeping those people alive. But they are itching to bomb those hospitals. And, they'll tell you, go on and tell you with a straight face that Hamas has terrorist targets under the largest hospital in Israel right now. They'll say that, in the Gaza Strip. They'll say that with a straight face. They'll say it with no evidence. They will say it, and they will do it to, justify what is about to come. And I think we all know what is about to come. All right. And if you can, don't just listen to my voice. Listen to, a Palestinian doctor, just like telling, listen to people who are actually there. Seek out the videos of people from Gaza. All these people, you're saying, don't look away, don't look away. As long as they still have internet, as long as they can get their stories out there, listen to the people describing what's happening, in Gaza. It's horrific. It is beyond words. And by the way, keep in mind, we've seen doctors be completely murdered. Multiple doctors be completely murdered by the Israel. Like if you are on Twitter now, go follow people like Ghassan Abu Sita, GhassanaBusitta. He is just like he's saying there is no lonelier place. 16 hours ago, he said he could be dead. Or he last posted 16 hours ago, and it's like he very well could be dead. But it's like his last post was, there is no lonelier place in the universe than look around the bed of a wounded child who has no family to look after them. Because again, 50 families, uncles, cousins. The entire family tree wiped off the map. They are trying to just snuff people out. It is beyond comprehension. It is. Yeah, so this is Ghassan Abu Sita, who's a doctor in Gaza, talking about this to the BBC.
You have a plan for what you will do if the ground invasion begins?
We will stay with our patients and we will defend our patients' right to life to the very end. We as health professionals have a commitment for the well-being of our patients, and we will stay here until and after the ground invasion is done. If the Israelis decide to commit genocide, if the Israelis decide to commit a war crime, then that is on the international community who saw this coming and allowed it to happen.
So yeah, he's saying, I am sticking there. Just, again, bravery beyond, I think, anything that anyone in the West could begin to comprehend. And these are people who, again, are literally, just by the fact that they're staying there, they're continuing to treat their patients. They're refusing to bow to these orders, these fake bullshit orders that essentially mean that, couldn't, it's the idea that they're going to get these houses. Like, they are giving up their houses or death. That is essentially what Israel is saying to all the people of Gaza. Give up your house or die. That is what they are saying. Like, the idea that they're saying now officially in Israel, like, they are not going to allow these people back. they're saying one thing to the Western world as always, and then to the internal population, they're saying we are going to move in. And again, no Gazan. Why should they? It's the entire story of their life since 1948. This is exactly how it happens. These people are cleared out. These people are, they're, again, promised some sort of fig leaf story, and then, again, do you really think that this Israeli government, if you are listening to this out there and saying, oh well, Hamas gave them, zero time to evacuate. Again, Israel is giving them 1 day, or at least, however long it was. I think it keeps expanding at this point. They're giving 1 day to either leave their houses, to never return again, to be permanent refugees, because they will not be allowed back into the country. And if you think they will, like, you just are not serious. Like, you are just not paying attention to any sort of historical context. You're not just using your brain if you think Israel is going to come after and say, oh, all the Palestinians, they can have the Gaza Strip back. All the people in North Gaza who, by the way, don't have that house anymore because we bombed it, they're going to be allowed back in. Like, that is just so ridiculous. I can't even begin to waste any time further discussing it. Like, it is, like, this is a order to self-cleanse ethnically. Like, to get out, to push people out, to bomb them, by the way, as they go out, and to kennel them up even further in a size of land that's even half the size of the already incredibly small Gaza Strip, keep people in more, and then Lord knows what happens next when they're done with the northern half. Like, what are they gonna do with the southern half? It is unimaginable. It is unimaginable. And Israel, or in Egypt, all the people say, oh, Egypt is one thing. They should again. They don't want to. I feel like it could be a lot of reasons, but the fact is they probably don't want to be the country that is participating with Israel on a thing that may be known for many, many years in history as a complete and utter genocide. They don't want to be the country that sold these people off while the rest of them were killed and their entire houses were destroyed, and their ethnic existence, their ethnic stamp in that territory was wiped out once and for all. Like, that is not something that any country would want to take a part in. And I think the fact that that's your big motivation today, talking about Egypt, what Egypt is doing as Israeli tanks roll in and, Israeli drone strikes are killing children and bombing hospitals, like, you have to really look yourself in the mirror. As mass graves are showing up throughout Gaza at the moment, like, it is ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. And here's a great post from Yanis Varoufakis, who is a great kind of left pundit and former Greek finance minister. He said, "Why don't the Palestinians pursue their objectives by peaceful means? They did. The PLO recognized Israel and renounced armed struggle, and what did they get for it? Absolute humiliation and systematic ethnic cleansing. That is what nurtured Hamas and elevated it in the eyes of many Palestinians, the only alternative to a slow genocide under Israel's apartheid." And again, that is that. If you wonder, again, you should not be shy. If you're defending Palestine, you should not be shy to say that Palestine, or that Hamas has, armed support, or Hamas has support, not armed support. Like, maybe they need some help for what's coming. Like, Jesus Christ. They have support in Gaza. They have popular support in Gaza because of the fact that they're the only people there who can resist what Israel is doing to them on a daily basis. And even then, they don't resist. They barely can resist, because most of the time they just end up, getting slaughtered. And a lot of the time, Israel isn't even, quote unquote, Hamas targets tend to be, more often than not, family buildings and, apartment complexes. Like, you would think that they at least have some clear terrorist bases, and they're not all just family apartment buildings and schools and hospitals and stuff like that. Like, you would think, but no, it doesn't seem that way. And this is a post here from Rafat, who has been a great source from I Translate 123, kind of a journalist from Gaza on social media. In response to this great report, Israel officials confirm they've turned on the water supply to southern Gaza Strip. It happens after strong U.S. pressure in the last 48 hours. Really amazing stuff here. So crazy. But Rafat kind of you can kind of see maybe why it's crazy from the jump. The fact that they've also, turned electricity on as well. They have not, and Rafat goes, I am from Gaza, and I'm telling you this is a joke. Israel destroyed many water pipes. Also, without electricity, we cannot turn on the water pumps. Water in Gaza does not simply run into the taps. We have to fill water tanks about twice a week. So again, to power these tanks, to power this whole filling up process, to just transport the water, again, because the pipes are destroyed, they need actually fuel, which is another thing that Israel is just not giving them in any way. It is really, really, and again, you have, meanwhile, all this stuff, we don't never target civilians in Israel. We just want to give them a chance to go away before we just destroy their homes, and don't let them come back to their lands. But meanwhile, Arabic reporters are getting threatened, are getting interrupted, are getting accosted on live TV, saying we will turn Gaza to dust. Again, this is stuff that he is in a more powerful situation than the reporter, because he's Israeli, the reporter is Arabic, and the reporter doesn't have any kind of recourse to stop what he's doing. Meanwhile, as all this stuff happens, a really interesting situation from this report here from Al Jazeera. Amid the Israeli-Gaza war, Indian right-wing accounts are among the leading amplifiers of anti-Palestinian fake news. Some of these fake stories, including Hamas kidnapping a Jewish baby and beheading a young boy on the back of a truck. Blue-check accounts have pushed false reports into the stratosphere of virality. One extremely popular tweet, shared by thousands of people, even claimed the Hamas attack was a U.S.-led psyop, which is an interesting take if anyone knows the way the U.S. thinks. Boom, which is one of India's most reputed fact-checking services, found several verified Indian ex-users at the helm of this disinformation campaign. Dr. Mark Owens, assistant professor of Middle East Studies and Digital Humanities at Hamad bin Khalifa University, wrote about it in Jacobin, which is very, very interesting to kind of go check that out. So in a statement posted on X, the U.S. said it was unclear how long Egypt would allow this Rafah crossing to remain open. Apparently sometime in the morning. Who knows why? Probably after intense U.S. pressure that they're bowing to it, but it's going to be a very, very interesting situation. So if you assess it to be safe, you may wish to move closer to the Rafah border crossing. There may be very little notice if the crossing opens, and it may only be open for a limited time. So this is what Blinken said, the U.S. State Department said on X. Earlier, it was announced that the border crossing would open at from 9 a.m. in the Palestinian territories and allow, including 600 Americans, at least 600 Americans, including other foreigners as well, to pass through. So that's it's kind of a very interesting situation. It's a dynamic and analyzing it between Egypt and the U.S. until Blinken and Sisi had a little bit of a back and forth on TV actually recently. So apparently this is from Ghanem Nusabeh, who is founder of the Cornerstone Global Associates Chair of Muslims Against Anti-Semitism in the UK. He said, extraordinary President Sisi live on TV effectively lecturing Blinken, addressing him as a Jewish citizen, said he grew up in a Cairo neighborhood with Jewish neighbors who were never attacked in Egypt or Arab world, like what happened in Europe, referring to these many attacks on Muslims protesting for Palestine throughout Europe. Really kind of interesting stuff for sure. And there's some other videos coming out of that as well. Now we kind of got to focus here on the U.S. too, because there has been a really, really horrific story coming out of the U.S., and specifically in Illinois, where, according to the AP here, a 71-year-old Illinois man accused of fatally stabbing a 6-year-old boy and seriously wounding 32-year-old woman was charged with a hate crime on Sunday. Police allege he singled out the victims because of Islamic faith in response to a war between Israel and Hamas. So this is something that is going, I think it's really important here to be digging into everything about this guy, particularly his media consumption habits, who he was listening to, where he was getting his worldview from. That would allow him to do something like this, because this is probably going to be a relatively long-running conflict that's going to engender a lot of hatred, especially where areas where around maybe the East Coast, where there is places like Detroit, where you have kind of Muslim Palestinian supporting communities and, kind of right wing, white communities living very, very close. It's going to be a very scary and potentially very, I don't think it's fair to say even potentially a dangerous, incredibly dangerous situation, excuse me, for Palestinian people over the next, foreseeable future. It's indefinite, which is very scary. And of course, there are going to be, attacks and, rising threats of anti-Semitism. And again, I think it's always interesting to interrogate how much of those, anti-Semitism allegations, like, this is the standard from the ADL, they'll call someone writing Free Palestine anti-Semitic if they just write it randomly on a bridge. If they're writing in, just on some Jewish person's property, that is 100% anti-Semitic and not something anyone should do. But there have been times, multiple times, where the ADL will point to something, say, oh, Free Palestine is on this bridge, but it's been there for a long time and had nothing to do with really anything going on right now, but it's an anti-Semitic incident. So that is something that, should also be considered. But of course, like I said, just it's reprehensible to go around to random Jewish people going, "Oh, Free Palestine, like that's just disgusting." But again, fine line there. But this is, I think, a very severe threat that is almost in some ways more dangerous because of how undercounted and discounted it is. Like there has been so many times, threat, especially ever since obviously 2011. Where Muslims have been threatened, they've been just in every way humiliated in America, culturally, socially, politically, they have been attacked again and again and again. It's an absolutely horrific situation, especially when so much of our terroristic incidents that we've seen since 9/11 have come not from Muslims but from white supremacists. It's been a really it's been a really kind of clear situation, a very threatening situation, especially as we have all these people condemning, Hamas, demonizing Hamas, rightfully so for the atrocities that they committed, but also demonizing Palestinians, portraying, Muslims very much in that kind of broad category. And, the way the media has covered this has been absolutely horrible, just spreading things that turn out not to be true, talking in the most barbaric of terms about, Hamas and not doing nearly enough to, say, oh, the Palestinians are good. They have not done nearly enough to do that. And this leads to, death. This leads to death of 6-year-old boys, as we are seeing here in this case. It is an absolutely horrific situation. And, if you think this is going to stop anytime, or is this a one-off situation? I think there's already been, since the beginning of the show, I'm pretty sure I just saw news about another, potential situation like this happening. It is very much bound to happen when we have top-down control from the, from the president on down, designating anyone who, supports Palestine or, especially supports, by the way, again, I'm not trying to say that, for my support of Palestine as a white, straight man, like I'm going to be in danger, especially in comparison to a, Muslim woman or a Muslim family, especially in a poor area, wearing the hijab, looking kind of, visually Muslim in a way that is coded, especially as 9/11, to a lot of very stupid racist people as very threatening. That is something that is not going to go away anytime soon. And it's just like, it is really, really, if you have a Palestinian flag outside your window, for example, or in your window or something like that, or it's just some sort of demonstration of some sort of solidarity, and you come out and you're wearing the hijab or something like that, you most likely, seeing things like this, are not going to feel safe, and you very well could be at risk of an attack. And that attack is going to be, it's not going to be condemned, it's not going to be traumatized, it's not going to be so much sympathy in comparison to when, children get killed or civilians get killed in Israel. And that leads to, a differential moral weighting of these two awful crimes, which is very, 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 very scary for not just, the Muslims here, but the Muslims in Gaza and Palestine and really around the world, especially in places like Europe, where we've seen horrific scenes also coming out of Germany and France over the weekend as well. All right, we now go to another absolutely crazy situation. This is from Maxwell Tanney. So MSNBC has quietly taken 3 of its Muslim broadcasters out of the anchor's chair since Hamas's attack on Israel last Saturday amid America's wave of sympathy for the Israeli terror victims. This is blatant. This is racism. This is something that people, you feel like, how is this acceptable? Like, this is a sign of the apocalypse. The fact that people are just letting this happen, especially on MSNBC, just because. Like, they're just, hand waving on the side. They're not really talking about it. They're not paying attention. They're not treating it with the severity that nearly enough severity that it deserves. Because, this is, what could be the possible explanation? Could it be, it's either comes, they said, which is ridiculous because, they all 3 of them went out of their way to be incredibly condemnatory to Hamas. Or didn't say anything, as far as I'm aware, that's anyway controversial. Or, some piece of shit, boss at MSNBC thought it's maybe insensitive to have brown faces and Muslim sounding names on TV at a time like this. And the fact that is apparent and at such a high powerful levels in America right now is incredibly scary. And what's even more scary is that we don't know even at this late date, we haven't heard no one answer for it. We don't know who is responsible, and we don't know how or why they did it, and there's no, let alone any assurances that it will never happen again. It is really ridiculous. It's so the network did not air a Thursday night episode of the Mehdi Hassan Show on the streaming platform Peacock. MSNBC also reversed the plan for Ayman Mohyeldin to fill in this week on the network for host Joy Reid's 7 p.m. show on Thursday and Friday. They're just yanking him off the air quickly, quietly. They're just trying to take it. It's just almost like sorry, our diversity hires, they may have just gone a little bit too far. These are, again, I want to be clear. These are all, I have issues with, especially people like Mehdi Hassan on some issues, in terms of disagreements. But they're incredibly talented journalists. Mehdi Hassan is one of the best interviewers on the face of the planet right now. And I'm on Mohyeldin, and it was Ali Velshi as well. Who they are both, the probably best hosts on MSNBC in terms of insightful, interviews with people, holding, Democratic figures to account, and absolutely almost representing, the real true base of the Democratic Party, which is something you do not see very often at MSNBC, just, rich white liberals kind of being represented on that platform. But it's this is just absolute. And the person they got to fill in is, talk about somebody who should have a little bit of a scarlet letter under her name after what happened to her father the other week, is Alicia Mendez. This is the daughter of Bob Menendez. Excuse me, Alicia Menendez, who's the daughter of Bob Menendez, who got arrested. So it's speaking of condemnation, has she condemned her father for what her father is accused of doing? Let's get real. Talk about ridiculous condemnations. Let's hear that one first. That is a much closer, relation. And it's just really, really horrific. Mohyeldin has appeared on several programs on MSNBC as a guest, including shows hosted by Reid and Chris Hayes. While he did not host Reid's show, he was appearing. By the way, appearing on a guest as for cable news. I'm sorry, that just does not count. You just shoved in there for 5 minutes to say speak a third of the time, or if that at the most, and then you just get shoved away, and just put right back in your box, as opposed to being on there for a whole hour. And speaking at least some clear version of the truth. While he did not host Reid's show, a network official said that the cable channel opted to stick with more recognizable weekday hosts rather than hand over the reins to weekend anchors. Hassan's Peacock show is taped, and the network official said his show was shelved in favor of keeping coverage on the NBC streaming service more up to date. The move comes as MSNBC, like the Democratic Party with which it's often aligned, has swung into intense solidarity with the Jewish state after the murderous Hamas attacks. The shift comes with hidden internal and external objections to anything that breaks with that solidarity, and has come with social media criticisms of Hassan, Mohyeldin, and Velshi. Hassan has also been vocal on X, formerly known as Twitter, condemning the Hamas attack and calling attention as well to the plight of civilians in Gaza. All right, so with that being said, I think we got a pretty good taste of that story. And with that, we'll move on to our next kind of big story, which is a really kind of important piece, Haider Eid from Gaza, and a plea to really kind of stand up against genocide here. He writes, "The Israeli war crimes committed against our people in the Gaza Strip are unprecedented, a combination of ethnic cleansing and genocide. Ordinary people in Gaza expect the international community and the Arab and Islamic worlds to take up responsibility to protect the Palestinian people from the heinous crimes and immediately terminate Israel's unfolding genocide. Nothing whatsoever justifies the Israeli savagery, including severing off the water and electricity supply to 2.3 million people, half of them children." And again, this is something that people don't understand. No medical supplies are coming in either, as Gaza faces unprecedented bombing. Since Saturday, the 7th of October, Israel has flattened entire neighborhoods, including mine, al-Ramal. It has destroyed vital bridges, roads, waters, and electricity stations, residential towers, and villas on top of their occupants. Dozens of entire families have been wiped out. Among the latest victims is Professor Omar Farwana, Dean of the Medical Faculty at the Islamic University of Gaza. He was wiped out along with his entire family. This is a doctor, a kind of leader in the Gazan communities. Again, it's just, they will come for anyone and everyone. The latest from the Ministry of Health is that more than 2,300 of us have been killed by the non-stop Israeli bombardments, including more than 700 children, an extermination rate that averages 100 children per day. The total of the injured is over 9,000, but the reality is that numbers are likely much higher, as poorly equipped rescue teams cannot possibly reach all those under the countless destroyed buildings and massacre sites. By Saturday, about 600,000 people have been evacuated from northern Gaza to Gaza City to the south. 3 hospitals, including Al-Shifa, Gaza's largest, were ordered by Israel to evacuate, but they're refusing to do that. Transporting the sick and elderly and injured as well is simply impossible, with bombardment, constant, little fuel, and no safe facilities to which they can even be transferred. And by the way, no safe guaranteed passage out of those hospitals, which is something that, believe it or not, they actually do need. As UN officials are now warning the hospitals could cease functioning altogether within 48 hours, as fuel for emergency generators is about to run out. Food is scarce as it is now, cannot be preserved as there is no electricity. Oh, just imagine you have this food, like some perishable food. You can't eat it. It wouldn't make any sense to eat it all now, but you can't eat it all in the future because you don't have any refrigerator power. It's horrific. It's just horrific. This is how it sounded in Gaza from a member of the UN who was on the ground. The situation we are now in is unprecedented and cannot be described with words. No words can describe the situation. 15,000 Palestinian refugees are here. They left their homes without food or drink. Diabetics, children, even the disabled babies. Some of the children contracted smallpox. The center cannot accommodate that number. This is in Khan Yunis. This is in the south. Neither in terms of food, bathroom water, nor electricity. The electricity will be cut off shortly. We will not be able to attend to people. We don't know how to meet their needs. Please save Gaza. I beg you, save Gaza. It's dying. It's dying. It's dying. This is a UN doctor. There are children, elderly, and adults for whom I cannot provide. I am UNRWA. I'm the head of the shelter. I can't offer them anything. Oh, neither food nor water. There is nothing. We are looking for someone to give them food and water. They came with nothing. They are not beggars. They have their money, but where can we buy supplies? We need insulin. People are dying. We need insulin. We cannot provide them with anything. The situation is catastrophic situation. So again, please, I donated. If you are out there in any way, please donate to the UNRWA. Absolutely super important cause. I posted something about it on my personal social media, and hope that you feel that you feel the motivation too as well. So they write, the Palestinian people in Gaza have already been under siege for the past 17 years as collective punishment for exercising their democratic choice in elections in January of 2006. Since then, Israel has turned the Gaza Strip into the largest concentration camp with the largest population of prisoners in the world and called it withdrawal, which is a really great way of putting it. These are people who have not unilaterally withdrawn from the Gaza Strip. They have imprisoned the people in the Gaza Strip, and they have no desire. Why would they stand in the cell with their prisoners? It makes no sense. In fact, Western governments, especially the United States, are directly involved in these war crimes and crimes against humanity, as evidenced by statements of total support of Israel's crimes made by the highest-ranking officials, including President Joe Biden, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. We make these demands. Here from Gaza, we demand the rogue state of Israel end its genocidal attacks, and we demand the UN send troops to protect us civilians after the immediate entry of humanitarian aid, which would be really incredible to see. As for Palestinian solidarity groups and all international civil society organizations, we expect them to demand the immediate end of the unfolding genocide, the protection of civilian lives and property as stipulated in international humanitarian law and international human rights law, including the Fourth Geneva Convention, that Palestinian refugees in the Gaza Strip be provided with financial aid and material support to cope with the immense hardship that they are experiencing, and immediate reparations and compensation for all destruction carried out by local occupation forces in the Gaza Strip, including psychological counseling for the collective mental trauma of Palestinian civilians. We are aware that the colonial West has strictly accepted Israel trampling over Palestinians from the beginning in 1948. With precision brutality, we've been uprooted, humiliated at checkpoints, imprisoned without charge, denied our heritage and religious sites, denied our freedom to move and see family members, denied water and our livelihoods, our arable land, our access to the sea, our dreams of visiting other countries, and Israel has carried on because it knows the West makes noises, but it does not stand up to it. Europe and the U.S. have not merely watched from the sidelines, they have actively assisted Israel and rewarded it for its crimes, even this genocide. Indeed, the colonial West has decided to get directly involved while fully reviving Orientalist, racist stereotypes about barbaric brown Arabs, or in the words of Yoav Gallant, Israel's Minister of War, human animals. Hence the ease with which Israel has managed to mobilize mainstream media to endorse its racist narrative and cheer for its unspeakable crimes and massacres. It's time to stand up. Stand up for basic human rights. Is it too much to ask the world to follow basic expectations of human rights in its dealings with Israel? Stand up against the policies of occupation, apartheid, and genocide. And by the way, for all of us here in the United States, it may sound a little bit scary, but trust me, it is way better than being carpet bombs. All right. We're back tomorrow with another show. It's Newsflash.